all of a sudden, I just felt something. And I thought the nurses or somebody came in the room. So I opened my eyes, and there was Jesus looking at me. He just looked at me.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences, big and little God incidents. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome to episode 120. You're going to love Margaret and her story. Hit with cancer twice. I mean, at that, anybody's looking up going, what? Did I do something wrong here? Margaret had a choice, being offended by God. What the heck is He doing? Or on the other end of the spectrum is acceptance that maybe God knows what He's doing and maybe He's up to something good in all of that. So at the very same time I'm talking to Margaret from two different angles, I'm getting two other messages that have to do with being offended. Interesting week. One of them, it's a song. I've told you, songs bubble up in my head seemingly out of nowhere, and we know where that nowhere is. And the song was from 1892. I looked it up. And then there was this book that was recommended to me this week by a friend, and this book was written more than 20 years ago. And again, from two different angles, two different views of being offended. What is going on? And to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever heard it preached about. So, ready? Okay. First, the song. 1892. It's called "After the Ball Is Over." You may have heard it. If you go on YouTube or somewhere, you can look for Nat King Cole's version. Nice version. That said, you will not get the whole story of this song because back then they had all these preambles and a backstory, and you might not get the entire story. That it's a young niece asking her elderly uncle, "Why aren't you married? Why don't you have babies?" And the elderly uncle says, "Well, I was in love once. And we went to this dance, to the ball, and at the end of the ball, I saw her kissing another man, and I became very upset and very offended, and I walked out, and I didn't want to hear what her explanation was, and he just walked away." And the elderly uncle said, "And then I found out decades later that the man was her brother." Yeah, the uncle had disconnected himself from love, from that potentially lifelong love story and family and all of that, because why? He felt offended. Was it her fault? Did she do something wrong? No, it's all on him. He just felt offended. She meant nothing by it, but he felt offended. Okay, now to the book. The book is called The Bait of Satan. Bait, B-A-I-T, like fish bait. The Bait of Satan. Here's how this works. We're walking along through the woods, just going through our day, and we step in the trap. And this trap just clamps on to our leg, and we continue walking through, and sometimes we are oblivious that we have just disconnected ourselves from God, just like the elderly uncle, oblivious to the truth. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it's your boss, coworker, family member. Could be anybody during the course of a day. Let's say my wife says something to me that I get twinged by, like, gee, I feel kind of offended by that. Did she mean to offend me? No, she's just going through her day and says something kind of flippantly, and but meanwhile, a trap just got sprung on my leg. And especially in those relationships that you're in that are long lasting, that every day you may be dealing with the relationship, you got this trap, because when that trap hits and you get that offended feeling, even though they may have meant nothing by it, but we get the twinge, right? We get offended, and it starts to fester a little bit on our leg. And we get that bitterness going, that anger, and it can build some resentment, especially over time in relationships. It starts getting baked in, and then you kind of drift towards unforgiveness, and you're kind of oblivious to it, and you don't realize what's going on, a disconnection from God. What's that prayer say? Forgive me as I forgive, the Our Father, right? So if I don't, He doesn't. It's such a cunning trap. It is. It's got to be the easiest, quickest route to disconnecting from God. Like the book says, there are two kinds of people in the world, those who have been offended and those who believe they have been offended. Most of us are kind of in that category. And as I look down at my leg, oh, look at the trap. How did it get there? Did I step in it? And even if they did mean to do that, That was their whole intention. Either way, I got a trap on my leg, and either way, I've got to let it go because Jesus said so. I think the reason I'm being hit with this topic from 3 different directions this week, this trap that begins with feeling offended, is because as we look at, well, just look out in the world today, right? Does everybody look angry right now? Everyone just is so offended. Look at the latest notification on your phone, some news story, and you go, flip on the, I have not watched a network newscast. I can't tell you how many years because I swear they're just doing it on purpose. I know they are. Are they trying to offend me? They're doing a good job. I just don't watch anymore. It's like their mission right now. Take a look at social media. And you get offended, don't you? Because some idiot just said, what? Now, take a look at the Bible. Matthew chapter 24, verses 10 through 13. Jesus is talking about things to come. Many will be offended, and there will be hatred and betrayal, lawlessness. Take a look around, folks. Let's see, what else? Hearts will be hardened, and that there will be many false prophets. Take a look at who's out there preaching right now. Is anybody talking about forgiveness? Because that's the cure, forgiveness. We know that, don't we? We know that from Jesus. He came to deliver the cure. I go back to talk about a learning episode or two. 97 and 98, Faith Green, her near-death experience. She's going through her life review. Do you remember this? She's seeing herself as a young child hating her grandfather for beating her cousin. It's disciplinary, and that's the way he's doing it. And she hated her grandfather for it, and God actually said to her, no, you're not to hate him. Basically, you're not to judge him. None of us are to judge anybody, right? No, you're to love him and forgive him because you don't know why he got that way. You don't know how he hates himself for being like that. He says, you don't understand that in that time frame, which was the 60s, 50s, 60s, for this grandfather, that this was not out of the norm. This was kind of part of discipline at that time. And God telling Faith, you have to take that into account now as well. And as we look out into the world, and here we are judging what somebody, the mindset that was 500 years ago or 250 years ago, we're judging it through the vision of 2020 eyes. We have to be careful about judgment, about any time, about anyone. But again, we're in this world of everyone just feeling offended. Several days ago, I was on the phone doing an interview for this podcast, and I was talking to a woman who had not yet heard the podcast, but heard I was collecting stories, so I'm getting her story. And along the way, I'm hearing about her upbringing and just a horrific time in her life and a lot of abuse. And so I opened the door to this concept of forgiveness, and it didn't go well. She got very upset at me, and she began yelling at me and cursing at me, and then ultimately she hung up on me. What did I do? I immediately sent her a text, said, I'm sorry, on me, totally my fault. I apologize. If you ever want to tell your story at some time down the road, I'd love to hear it. I'm so sorry, it's on me. Had I said something that was incorrect? No, but again, this is where I live. This isn't where she has been living, and this concept came out of left field, and so of course I'm going to reach out. That's what a Christian should do. Look at Jesus on the cross. Look at the entire passion. At any moment, does he look offended? Of anybody that should be offended, the most innocent of us all, the only innocent of us all, and they beat him, and they tortured him, and they put nails into his body. They killed him. And he said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. At no point did he even go to step one of being offended. Again, the book says, 2 kinds of people who are offended or believe they are offended. Maybe there's a trap that's clamped on your leg right now. We have to ask ourselves, were we really offended? Was that their intention? Or is this me? Did I just step in it, Either way, either on purpose or not on purpose, I've got to deal with this thing. This is such a trap. Which brings us back around to Margaret. Should she feel offended? After all, God has allowed her to get cancer twice. That could be worth getting mad over and staying offended. Couldn't you keep that trap on your leg being offended by God because what's with the cancer, God? What did I do to deserve this, right? Or seeing way down there at the other end of the spectrum, acceptance, that maybe he's up to something good. Hey, guess who?
Hello, how are you, Trapper?
Margaret found this podcast, about 3 weeks ago.
I downloaded them all, so I started from the very beginning, and I'm working my way through.
Oh, you're going to hear me change too. See, we're all kind of learning together during this thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of a learning curve for all of us and just kind of what goes on, lessons learned and experiences. So you had stories come to mind, I take.
Yes. I am a 2-time cancer survivor. And at that time, after, the shock of it all and, asking God, why me? What have I done for this? Trying to figure it all out. When I was going through my first treatment on the radiation machine, somebody had put a sticker and it said, I can do anything through Christ. He strengthens me. And every day when I went for radiation, I would stare at that sticker and just keep saying it over and over.
And they didn't scrape it off?
No, which surprised me. It surprised me that it was on there.
Blessed be God.
Yeah. So again, that's another thing. There was a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay. I said, and I just assumed eventually somebody was going to take it off, but nope, through my whole treatment, that was there. And I would stare at it and just keep saying it over in my mind, I've always been a Catholic and I've always believed in God. I go to church, but it felt like something was missing. Something was missing, Then when my second diagnosis came.
Different cancer, same cancer?
Different cancer.
What was the first one?
Breast cancer.
And the second one?
The second one was anal cancer.
Jeez Louise, you've been hit.
Yes.
Oh.
I was like, okay, God. One time, but twice? What have I done to deserve this? I just couldn't figure out why me.
Which is that normal knee-jerk response of I'm being punished here.
Right.
And it's not that. It's not that.
No, and I found that out as I went through this journey, the second journey, because the treatment was very rough and I had severe radiation burns. And I was in a lot of pain. Again, saying, God, why me? Just let me know somehow that you're with me. Just somehow that you're going to be with me through this. And all of a sudden, I just get a vision of somebody walking by me. But there was no face. I couldn't see anything. It was just a vision of somebody walking by. And then I see a set of hands. And I was like, And then all of a sudden, I just felt something touching me on my shoulder. And it was just a literal, I could feel it. It was a touch, something touching me. And I put it together that was him telling me he's here from day one, when I first got the diagnosis. And so one night after all my treatment was over, I started a spike of fever. And I told my husband, I said, we got to get to the emergency room. Something's not right. I'm not feeling right. Something is wrong. So I was days in the hospital. I was almost a week in the hospital. And, I had my prayer blanket with me and my rosary, and I was wrapped up in it every day. And the nurses knew, don't touch the prayer blanket, and don't mess with the rosary. Just leave everything where they're at, and I would, talk to God every day. Why all this pain? Why am I going through this? And I think it was about 3 days into the hospital, because they had me on morphine and everything for the pain, because the radiation burns were very bad. The doctor comes in and he says, he said, your platelets are dropping real fast. And I need you to sign this paper because we may have to do an emergency blood transfusion in the middle of the night.
But the platelets, they help clot the blood, right?
Right, right. And if they fall too low, it could be, a life and death situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm laying there in bed and I'm just bawling my eyes out saying, God, why is this happening? Why is this happening? I became very restless and agitated. And I couldn't rest. I couldn't get comfortable. The burns were bothering me. So I rolled over on my side and I'm trying to sleep and my mind is just racing 100 miles an hour as to, am I going to make it out of the hospital? Am I not? My mind is just going. And all of a sudden I just felt something. And I thought the nurses or somebody came in the room because, they're in there every 30 minutes, it seemed like. And I didn't hear it, I didn't hear them moving around or doing anything, but I just felt the presence. So I opened my eyes and there was Jesus looking at me. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me. And Trapper, the calm that came over me when I saw him was amazing. Was amazing. And it was like him telling me, you're not going through this alone. I'm here with you. I'm not alone. He's with me. And I just became so calm. I dozed off to sleep. And I just felt so secure. And then, I don't know how long it was, but it was a while later, I woke up because I felt the pain. And I started moving around, trying to get comfortable. And I opened my eyes again. And now because I was lying on my back at this point, and he was at the foot of my bed. And I was like, oh my God, he's here with me still. He's still here. He didn't leave me. And I fell back to sleep. So around 5 a.m., the doctors come in and he says, I don't know what happened, but in the middle of the night, your platelets started rising. And they're going up every reading we're getting. I said, I know what happened.
There's this guy.
Yeah. I said, he says, it's amazing. They just took a turnaround. I was like, well, can I ask you one question? And he said, yeah. I said, last night after you came in, was I on any morphine or anything like that? He said, no, we just had you on antibiotics. So my mind is telling me, okay, antibiotics wouldn't make you see things,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. I said, I have one thing, if you can do it for me. He said, sure. I said, can you please get the chaplain to come up here and talk to me? He said, sure. So the chaplain came up and I explained to him what happened. And I said, I don't understand. Why me? And he said, well, why not you? And I was like, well, I don't know. I just wouldn't think of me being as somebody who would be able to look up and actually see Jesus. And he was like, why not? How many people actually get to do that? He said, well, he's probably trying to tell you something. He has a plan for you.
And when you saw him, was it a spiritual Jesus or was it like flesh and bone? And
oh no, he was there he was there.
There was a human being standing there.
It was there.
This was not a ghostly figure. This was Jesus. This was a man standing there wearing what Jesus wore.
Yes. And that's why I kept saying, like, I wasn't on morphine last night, right?
And you weren't spiking your fever at that time? You weren't crazy with fever?
Nope.
And here, was he wearing the basic white outfit again? The one he always chooses out of the closet?
Well, no, actually, I guess it was kind of an off-white. It wasn't white. It was an off-white.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't real bright because I was really just focused on his face because I was in amazement and in awe. And
talk about his face. What'd you see?
Oh, it was just so. it was just so calming for some, like I said, he didn't say anything. He didn't even reach out his hand to me. He was just there. And when I looked into his eyes, I just saw love. And it just relaxed me. And his face was just so smooth and pure looking and beautiful. And his eyes were very, I guess, strong. I don't know if that's a good word, strong eyes, that you could see the beauty in him through his eyes.
Do you remember the color? Sometimes they're different for different people, but what were they for you?
No, I don't remember the color. I don't remember the color. I just remember focusing on them. More than any other part, it was his eyes that got me and focused. But then when I woke up the second time and he was at the foot of my bed, I mean, I saw his whole being was there. And it was like, I know who this is. So it's okay now. I can go back to sleep. It's like, I'm relaxed now. And it was amazing. It was just amazing. It was a very calming, immediately calming vision.
Everything's okay. I got Jesus.
Yeah. And the fact that I knew he was in the room, somebody was in the room. I didn't know what until I opened my eyes.
In that peace. So you were having your moment there in Mark's gospel where you're in the boat and the ocean waves are crashing and we're all going to die and they're running back to Jesus. And there's that sleeping Jesus, that peaceful Jesus going, I'm here. What's your problem? I'm here.
Exactly. Before this experience, I could never relate all those parts of scripture to what I experienced.
It was a pile of words, wasn't it?
Yes. But now, through my journey, I can relate so much to what has happened over these last few years to me.
And I just want to say to anyone listening is that if you don't have that yet, you will. Keep listening to these stories and start connecting it to Bible verses. Because I was not a Bible guy either. I mean, I was pretty strong in it was like, let's just look at what God's doing right now. And that's all you need to know. No, it's all tied, it's all scriptural. Everything that's happening now was happening in that Bible. And everything that's in the Bible is still happening today. God hasn't changed.
That's right.
And so, and I needed to, and that's why I got that nudge to do some schooling and whatnot to connect, to learn that scripture better, and catechism better, and all the stories of how they are connected directly. Old Testament's connected to New, connected to now. It's all connected. And once you start making those connections, then the whole world opens up.
Yes, it does. And you just become a different person.
Yeah.
But I started feeling this stronger, I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more. I wanted to have more time with Jesus.
See, the one thing, and you grew up Catholic, and so did I. Catholics are great on ritual. We are wonderful on ritual. And ritual is important since the beginning. Ritual that's worship. That's always been worship. And at the center of worship is sacrifice, which is why Old Testament, they're sacrificing lambs and goats and all this kind of stuff and offering them up. And we don't get that because here we are 2,000 years after Christ and we're going, what? They did what? Why did they? The final blood sacrifice was Jesus. That was the last blood sacrifice. That was the perfect sacrifice. So here we are 2,000 years later. In the midst of all this ritual, Jesus wants a relationship.
Exactly.
And without it, you said at the beginning, something was missing. That's what was missing. That's what was missing.
Exactly. And ever since that time, I have been more I have my time. This is my me and Jesus time. And my family knows, like, don't bother me. This is my time that I sit down, read scripture or whatever, and I think about it and try and relate it to things that, maybe this is what God was telling. Maybe this is what they were telling me, that through my suffering, my soul is going to be purified. That's why I went through all this pain. That's why I had to go through all this. And now my relationship with God is getting stronger because we have me time with him. I sit down and I try to go outside where I have a pond and it's beautiful. And I just look at all the things that God has given. And in this world, that the way it is today, I say, wow, he's done so much. It's so much for me. And now I realize what he's done for me. I had to go through all this to realize he wanted me to have a better relationship with him than what I had. And I'm just learning so much about myself, about scripture. And, as I read it and I look at, what's going on today, and I was like, wow, this, he's here, he's getting ready to come, you know?
You do wonder, don't you? You do wonder.
Yes, and I said, well, he told me in the beginning, he sent me a sign that he was with me. And then he came and I saw him. And he let me know that, hey, you've been going through this for over a month now, but I'm still here. I haven't left you. Don't because you're in so much pain, don't think I left you. I'm here.
Was that your first experience with that kind of interaction in your life?
Yes. Yes.
It's life-changing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Like when like I said, I have my Jesus time now. That every day is I have my Jesus. That's our time. Sometimes I complain to him, just all different things, but I know he's there listening. And I do it in an environment that is just so beautiful that how can you not say God is there when you're looking at all this beauty around you? It's somebody made all this. Somebody created this beauty. And that's like when I was in the hospital and I opened my eyes and saw him, that was the first thing that came to my mind. Like, God, he's beautiful. He's beautiful. He's so calming. Just seeing him, and he didn't say anything. He just looked at me, and I just felt so safe that this is going to turn around and I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, and it came through suffering.
Yes, it came through suffering. And I realized that, okay, after what you did for me by dying on the cross, if the only thing I have to do is get through this bout and suffer through this pain a little bit, I'm okay with it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna leave you and say, I don't want nothing to do with you because you made me go through this pain. There was a reason for this pain, and it was for my relationship with you to grow and to see that even though I have bad things happen in my life, you're still with me. And everything that happens for a reason. And getting this second bout with cancer, I firmly believe was him telling me we need to get a better relationship here. Yes, you believe, yes, you go to church, but we need our one-on-one time.
And you recognize the need for purification too. You saw the
Yes.
purification in it.
Yes, yes. And I also found too that a lot of ways I felt before, I don't feel that way anymore. And, just things that I was so firm in before, I've changed.
Your heart is softening.
Yes, yes.
Pure gold is very, very soft, actually. It's those impurities that make it hard. So as we cook out those impurities, recognize what they are and remove them, we just keep looking better and better in God's eyes.
Mm-hmm. And I just, pray to him to, if I don't understand something, kind of give me a sign, lead me in the way so I could further understand why something is happening or what I need to do. I figured it out. And one thing that my priest did tell me is that I told him, I said, well, I don't want to, people are going to think I'm crazy if I tell them this. And he says, but God wants you to tell it. You need to tell the story. People need to know that he is here. Even in the worst times of your life, you're going through, he's there. And you may not see it at that time, but it will come to light in the future. And you'll know, you'll start putting it all together like I did. Okay, he was telling me He's here with me. And
God bless you for, I'm so happy for you. Because some people just go to anger. You know that too, when these things
Yes.
happen and God is punishing me and I don't know why, and he's a mean God, and and they miss it. Then again, you were given a pretty significant visual aid,
Yes.
But for those who haven't had the visual aid, you are the visual aid.
Yes.
That's why it's so important to share the stories, whether it's here or someplace else or in your church or wherever, or to neighbors. That's why it's so important, because for those who haven't had the experience, for the Thomas who hasn't seen, hasn't had the experience of seeing Jesus in front of him, it's so easy. It's so easy to doubt. It's like, no, and that's why your role is so important. Why all those who have shared their stories, over the last couple of years,
It's changed my life. It's changed my life. And if people think you're crazy, let them think you're crazy.
Amen, sister.
Yes.
All right, what's the closing remark here? What's our takeaway from Margaret?
I think that everything happens for a reason, and we don't know what that reason is. But through your belief and your faith in God, He'll show it to you eventually. Once you realize that this is what the Lord has planned for you and accept it, you'll be much happier. You'll be much happier.
You just mentioned one of the great untold stories, and that's how Jesus accepted the cross. He said, if this cup could pass, as you did, but if not, and then whatever happens, you accept it. You may not like all of it, but somehow that puts one foot in heaven and things are revealed to you. You will understand like you now understand. And without that acceptance, without that letting go, without that humbling, it stays a pile of words. And somehow in saying, okay, He reveals to you, doors open, windows open, air comes through, and it's like, oh, and the relationship blossoms. Something happens in that acceptance. It's just one of the most powerful things you can do.
Yes. And that we have to go through that trial and that pain to be purified. It will eventually, you'll put it all together.
Yeah.
It's like a big puzzle. You'll put it together and you'll see. And not just a relationship that I'm going to church, you're going through the motions. It's not that kind of relationship. It's a relationship where you're one-on-one with Him. And He's communicating to you and you're communicating to Him.
You are one giant lesson plan. Beautiful.
And I tell you, you feel so different. I mean, it's hard to explain, but you just feel so different after you have that relationship.
Thanks, Margaret. A great lesson in acceptance. Look at the benefits. Look at what happened. The conversation, the relationship that began. And by the way, I know she got the visual aid, Jesus standing there, twice. Well, guess what? He's standing there with you right now. You can't see Him. Okay, you can't see Him. But He's looking at you right now, saying the same thing. I'm here. I've always been here. I'm never going to leave you. I know you're suffering right now. I know you're going through whatever you're going through right now, and I'm right here. Just latch on to me. Know that I am here. It can all just be a pile of words until the relationship kicks in. And again, at the other end of the spectrum, feeling offended, it's a trap. It's a disconnection from God and from those around us. It's a trap. Take it from a trapper. It's all a trap. I need your story. Get a hold of me at touchedbyheaven.net. Also, you want these kinds of stories, these Touched by Heaven moments, we have a newsletter we send out every week. Just go to this episode 120 here at touchedbyheaven.net. Click the Stay Informed link and sign up, because we have links to all kinds of stories and videos and things that we find out there. And it's just a great way to stay informed about the whole Touched by Heaven universe, if you will. My Patreon shout out this week goes to Tracy McKellar. Tracy McKellar, thank you so much. If you find these episodes a blessing to you and will consider helping support us on a monthly basis, just go to this episode again, click on the Patreon link, and it'll take you to patreon.com, or you go to patreon.com and search for Trapper Jack. We do video chats. I create videos. My wife puts together these terrific e-cards. We're trying to give more and more to you, more content to you as we do these things as well. So patreon.com, our episode 120 here at touchedbyheaven.net. All right. Thanks again for keeping us a 5-star podcast by your ratings and reviews. How about we do this again next week, shall we? All right. In the meantime, stay out of traps, said the Trapper. And I'll see you next week here at Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack.